Hey everybody, welcome to the AI in Banking Summit. Today we're joined with a very special guest, Jim Marous. Jim Marous is an internationally recognized speaker, author, and expert on disruption in the financial services industry. He's the co-publisher of The Financial Brand and owner and publisher of the Digital Banking Report. Today we'll be talking about branches, bots, and beyond, how AI changes customer engagement. Jim, a big thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you.
Great. So Jim has prepared a special presentation for us today. So we're going to turn it over to him and then we'll follow it up with some Q&A. So Jim, I'll let you take it away.
Super. Okay. Well, it's great to be here, and what a great time to be involved in the whole technology space, banking space, and talking about what's going on with regard to technology overall. When we look at what's going on right now, it is clear that financial technology, more than anything else, is increasing, and the change is increasing at an increasingly fast pace. At a point where, in the past, the consumer really was at the mercy of what the financial institutions and even the government had to do with providing what we had out there. Today, more than ever before, the consumer's ahead of the curve. They are demanding things of us that we are not able to provide in many cases and are not fulfilling their promises. The best example is probably personalization. We've done research with the Digital Banking Report that shows that the consumer and the financial industry wants to have a higher level of personalization. And unfortunately, the banking industry is falling short. And there's really a personalization paradox to a degree where they have a desire for that personalization. We have a desire to provide that. But unfortunately, right now, we're in a situation where we don't have the insight, we don't have the processing power, and we're not moving it forward in front of the customer to provide that. The power of data and cognitive learning is really setting the pace for everything we're doing. We did a trends and predictions report this year that looked at the top 10 trends and predictions in the financial services industry. And we found that every one of those trends, at the foundation of it, was big data. And not big data for the sake of getting great reports, but really big data for the sake of developing great experiences. And that's where we're falling short. As an industry, if Wells Fargo is one of my banks, and if you ask them, what do you know about Jim Marous, there's a massive amount of data they have and a massive amount of insight. The problem is, I never feel like they know me. In fact, they've had a 15-year relationship with me, and it's just our relationship started yesterday. And if this was a personal relationship, without the challenge of switch, you could have a situation where basically I would divorce the organization as an impersonal situation, that they're really not meeting the guide of what I require from a personalization standpoint. From a financial industry, we really have to respond to the changing digital consumer. And the changing digital consumer, as you can see on the screen, it may be the millennial, but the reality is, while most millennials are digital, not all digital consumers are millennial. I am far from being a millennial, but I would consider myself a heavy digital user. And what I expect from my financial institution is the same type of expectations that I have for Amazon, Google, Apple, and Facebook. And so the challenge is, how do we meet the expectations of an increasingly demanding digital consumer? Well, one way this has come about is with fintechs and with the competition that's in the marketplace. I think if you look at the competition we have in the marketplace right now, I think you'll see that most of it has been driven by great use of data and great use of digital technology, matching those together. Now, we're seeing in the industry now that a lot of organizations are partnering with fintechs as opposed to thinking of them as competition. And I think that's probably a good place to be. But as I said, when you look at the power of this, it's really the power of big data, AI, and digital technology to bring this together and say, how can I meet the customer's demands on a personalized level using data? The overall goal in this whole process is simple. It's to make banking simpler and to make life simpler. A consumer does not want to go from app to app to app to try to address their daily needs. What they're looking for is some organization that can provide an extraordinary customer experience and bring these all together. Ron Shevler, who you're going to be hearing from, it is a person that believes in, he uses the term platformification. And when we look at platformification, it's the banking industry being able to bring together a lot of the technologies and services and solutions into one overall platform with the banking organization being at the center. Now, the key there is it doesn't have to be banking. There's no reason why the bank can't be the owner of the relationship for Uber, Hilton, the airlines, entertainment, restaurants, and go to one place to provide all these solutions. And by doing so, building a much better experience for the consumer and making their life easier. Now, we have a choice. Does the banking industry want to do this, or individual banks want to do this? Or do we have a situation where a Facebook, an Apple, an Amazon becomes not the bank of the future, but becomes the experience of the future, providing financial services? The key is to remove friction from the customer journey. How do we make it so that there are less taps on the screen to get where you want to go? A good example is my next door neighbor is a 14-year-old young man who came up to me this year and said, "Mr. Marous, have you ever heard of Square Cash?" And I laughed. I said, "Not only do I know about it, I use it, and I speak to it." He goes, "Would you be willing to pay me for cutting your lawn on Square Cash?" And I had to take the opportunity to say, "Okay, yeah, I'll do that, no problem at all. But why?" And he goes, "Well, in the past, you paid me with cash and checks, and while that was good, I had to go to the bank, and I don't want to go to the bank." Now, that's a whole generation of people that say, you know what? Going to a facility is cumbersome. It's friction. It creates anxiety. On the other hand, he understands, and I understand, that things like Square Cash, Venmo, PayPal are a one-click experience. When is banking going to be able to provide that one-click experience, knowing immediately what I'm probably going to want to do in the app, as opposed to making me search around the app to get to there? All the data we have allows us to personalize and bring added services to add loyalty. So as we know more about the consumer, more about where they go, what they do, how they interact, how they socialize, the amount of data we have makes it so, unlike a branch, which was an experience where you had a walk-in and walk-out scenario, you can be in contact with a consumer every day in everything they do. By doing so, it increases loyalty. So if I have a banking app that also includes all my loyalty cards and all the places where I go and shop and knows where I am, you can provide a better experience and a better value that won't be wanting to be unwound. And so the key is, how can you provide an opt-to-channel delivery? And by opt-to-channel, what I mean by that is not omni-channel, where you provide a lot of different channels you can use, or not multi-channel, where you pick which ones you want to go to, but how does a financial institution understand the way I want to interact given different scenarios? So if I have a complaint, they should be able to get me immediately to the channel that I feel most comfortable with for complaining or for a challenge. It's a different challenge if I'm saying an ATM is down versus my debit card has been hacked. Can you get me to the right channel? So what's the optimum channel? Big data, insight, longevity, and trust provides financial institutions the ability to think ahead. And what I like to consider it as is a GPS of financial services. My son in January got in an automobile accident. He's okay, his passenger's okay, but he hit the back of a semi with a 2006 Toyota that basically totaled the car. The difference between a 2006 Toyota and a 2016 Toyota is exactly what we should be thinking about in the banking industry. The 2006 Toyota, he knew he got in an accident the second he got in an accident. The 2016 Toyota would have been able to warn him ahead of time, saying, you're on the path to getting into an accident. Change your path. So much the same way, financial institutions now have enough information, enough data, enough interaction to be able to say, how can I provide you the contextuality to say, how do I avoid financial mishaps? How do I provide financial recommendations that make you better financially, as opposed to simply notifying me that I have an NSF fee or waiting for me to make the transaction that says, oh, by the way, you may want to transfer some money from point A to point B. These are interactions that the branch never was able to provide. These are interactions that the consumer is looking for in their Amazon-driven, Facebook-driven, Apple-driven world. So what we want to do, and one of the key points is the interaction of voice, the application of voice. This is something I believe is going to be coming on us very fast. A couple of days ago, we had Amazon Prime Day. The biggest seller during Amazon Prime Day were more voice devices that are being sold by Amazon. As part of many of those apps, or devices, they come with discounts to have people get interacting with the device. We're talking about interaction that may not be simply ask a question, get an answer, or find out the news, or find out a score, or play music. This may actually be proactive information. I'd like to give you an example of what it could feel like in the future.
Good morning, Jim. The weather is supposed to be warm with a slight chance of showers. The Cleveland Indians won 5-2 last night against the New York Yankees. Do you want me to read you the morning news?
No, I'm fine.
The balance in your checking account is $1,547.43. The balance in your savings account is $8,223.22. Your investment portfolio has not changed since yesterday, but 3 of your holdings have advisor recommendations. Would you like me to send you these by email?
Yes, send them by email, please.
Your calendar is pretty open today, but you have a lunch with John Williams at 11:45 a.m. Do you want me to make a lunch reservation for about 11:45 a.m. with Rio Restaurant?
Yes, please.
Do you want me to email any recent updates to John Williams' LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter accounts?
Yes, please.
Do you want me to order you an Uber for lunch to arrive at 11 a.m.?
Yes, please.
Do you want the Uber to return at 1:30 p.m.?
Make it 1:45.
You are running low on milk, eggs, grated cheese, Fruit Loops, and sugar. Do you want me to reorder these items for delivery for 8 p.m. tonight?
Reorder everything except Fruit Loops.
Your wife said she would like home for dinner tonight. Would you like me to order the ingredients and have them delivered at 5:30 p.m.?
Make it 6, please.
Do you want me to email the recipe you used last time from the network?
Yes, please.
Would you like me to pick a matching wine for delivery as well?
Red, please. Yes.
Is there anything else I can do for you today?
Could you order some flowers for my wife?
I will order an assortment of tropical flowers like her wife likes in the $40 price range for delivery by 6 p.m. Is there anything else?
No, that's it.
Have a nice day, Jim. I will confirm our conversation by text and send to your phone.
So as you can see, in that interaction, that was all not me interacting with Alexa or Siri. It was Siri interacting with me based on the information that you can capture from a lot of different places around the internet and things that I teach my device to do. Now, what's important about that is every single transaction that we had, or every conversation we had, involved a financial transaction, payments, whatever it may be. So is a financial institution be at the center of that? Is it going to be able to use all the data and knowledge that the financial institution has to make it for a better experience? Or will this be provided by Amazon, by Facebook, or by Google? This is an example of a payment process by Alibaba. If you're not familiar with Alibaba, I highly recommend you Google them after these sessions, because they are front and center going to be a competitor for every bank in the world soon. What Alibaba did was they tested a shopping mall, virtual shopping mall. What this woman is doing is she is walking through a mall using virtual reality, and she can make purchases simply by nodding. Now, it's a little scary when you think about the ease of purchase, but the ability to do this in banking is also there. You could walk into a virtual branch, or the virtual branch could come into your house and actually have interaction with employees much the same way they do with a facility. We have to remember, when consumers are answering these surveys that say they want branches. They don't necessarily want branches. Nobody really loves going into a physical facility. What they want is the personalization, the one-to-one experience that the branch provides. There are a lot of different ways to do this. This can be done through VR. It can be done through video screen. It can even be done with holograms where the personal banker sits beside you in your house and has interaction with you. Now, why would the bank want to do this? Efficiency. Your personal bankers only have so much capacity. But if they don't have to leave their desk and instead visit house to house to house or person to person without leaving their desk, they can make a lot more calls. You can also get a specialized banker. For me, I have a small business that's mostly in the publishing business. I'm dealing with a small business banker who's nice, does an okay job, but certainly doesn't understand my business. There's probably somebody within the bank that does. Wouldn't it be great for me to have that personal banker available to me on call or on visual or in my house? The key also is third-party integration. We as a financial institution need to be able to provide integration of different products, different services that allow us to be more in front of the customer, making their life easier. Hilton's done this with Uber. Hilton contacted me when I was in a conference in New Orleans earlier this year, and they contacted me, wanted to know if I wanted to interact with them using their mobile device. I said, sure. They said, you also want us to connect with Uber and have an Uber waiting for you? Yes. And I told them the time my flight was leaving, going to be arriving. What was interesting is they provided that service, and what happened was when I landed, my Uber was there. Not a whole lot different than a normal experience, except it was there ahead of me. I got in the car. As soon as that car was moving, I got a text from Hilton saying, by the way, push this button. This will be your mobile key card. You don't have to check in. You don't have to check out. This is your access to your room. We drove another 10 miles down the road, and Local Eats, Uber Eats, which is also Open Table, connected with me and said, here are 3 restaurants around the hotel that you're staying at. Would you like us to make a reservation for you? These are restaurants that you've liked in the past, or types of restaurants you've liked in the past. So by the time I visited the hotel, I had my key card, I had my driver, and I had my restaurant for the night. These all, again, took transactions and took money to be able to pay for these things, all of which could be at the disposal or the center of the hub, the platformification, if you will, of the banking services. In the future, we're not going to be talking about devices as in phones or watches, maybe. We may be just talking about without devices in the digital world. This is obviously a scene from a movie, but I think that this type of technology, the ability to interact without a device, may be in the future. And I think as we prepare for things, it makes more sense to prepare for a digital future than necessarily a mobile future or a wearable future. So what are our calls to action? Number 1, customer centricity. More than just talking about customer centricity, being able to use AI, big data, technology, Internet of Things to make it so the customer feels like they're the center of their attention. Second, data-driven. Everything's going to have to do with data. Anything that happens in the future, the winners are going to be determined not by those with the most data, but by those who can apply the data the best from the consumer's point of view. Again, remembering it's not great reports, it's great experiences that we're working for. Contextual engagement. Being able to move from just talking to a person not knowing where they are to talking to a person based on where they are, what they're doing, and what they want to do. This engagement is a higher level that consumers are going to have to give us permission to do, but if we deliver on it, this is a differentiator that will not be able to be unwound. Design matters. I keep on getting back to simplicity, but if all these things happen in a more and more complex world, because banking loves to add things as opposed to make them simpler, design is going to be the differentiator that we have to look at. And we cannot be building online banking on a mobile platform. We need to be looking at design overall. We need to build, as I mentioned, digital first as opposed to mobile or as opposed to online first. We have to deal with it in a digital sense, knowing that the device may change. We can't do it alone. Every organization, the biggest and the smallest, are now partnering with leaders. They're partnering with companies like Abe and other ones that are be able to bring technology and the experience that they have to the masses in a way that's very personalized and very specific. So you want to find somebody that understands the financial service industry and understands where you want to go. But there's people that know more about it than you do, and it's best to get it up and running as quickly as possible. And finally, we have to rethink distribution. It's not about branches. It's not about mobile. It's not about online. It's about connecting with the consumer where and when they want in the channel that they want in a personalized way. I appreciate the time you spent with me today. I think we're going to get into some questions, but I hope that helps.
Yeah, Jim, that was fantastic. Again, thanks for putting together such an excellent presentation. So I feel like most bankers would say, yes, I want to operate more efficiently. I want to have a better relationship with my customer. I want to be able to meet them where they are and provide these channels of choice and this convenience. But where do I begin as a bank? Like, what are some of the big challenges to overcome? And you talked a lot about data. Is it a matter of getting our data house in order? Is it a matter of, leadership driving these sort of, what are you seeing as some of the biggest challenges to banks leveraging some of the AI technologies that can do some of the things that you mentioned?
Boy, it was interesting. I was in a conversation yesterday with some friends and talking about 4 years ago, where did we think we would be today? And we're not there, especially in the United States. It's somewhat better overseas with regard to government regulations, and we have a lot of challenges. I think one of them is that the government has not caught up to where we are technology-wise and from a financial institution, what we need to do for the consumer. But let's take that off the table, because I'm not going to be able to change the government's perspective on things. I think it does get down to two things. Number one is culture. We can't underestimate the fact that most banks are run by people that came into the banking industry at a time when, number one, the same core systems were in place. But more importantly, we have a situation where most of them came into the banking as a conservative industry that would have longevity, would give you a good career path, and there wouldn't be a lot of disruption. That is not the person you'd hire today to fulfill the needs that you have with regard to moving forward. I think if you look at innovative organizations, you're going to look at a BBVA, you're going to look at a Lacacia, you're going to look at a Denise Bank, you're going to look at some of the banks in Singapore in the Far East, you're going to look at M Bank. Every one of those organizations, if you look at what was really different, it was the way they looked at data and all that. It was more so the culture. When you talk to their leaders and you see them speak, there's a passion for what's going on and a support at the highest level to deliver on that. That said, we also have to move our whole data perspective from developing tremendous insights internally to providing it so that it works well for the consumer. We did, as I mentioned, a research project with the Digital Banking Report on personalization and also customer experience. And we see a huge disconnect between what we're doing today and what the consumer really wants. For instance, in the customer experience, when we ask, what do you consider to be the key to be able to provide a high level of satisfaction? The first thing that was said was, respond quickly to problems. That's a great thought. It's great to do it. However, when you ask a group of people, 100, 200 people, how many of you had a problem with your bank in the last year? 1 or 2 people raise their hands. So while that's a great goal, the reality is it touches so small of your data, your overall customer base. The second thing was a great branch experience. Now again, you need to have a great branch experience. However, 60% less customers are coming to the branch. What it really gets down to is digital experience, especially when you look at things like the most recent Navantis report that found that consumers today are considering convenience to be based more on their digital experience and how good their mobile apps are than the location of their branch. Take that a step further. When people looked at what would make you a trite, customer service, fees, and a bad mobile app ranked higher than closing a branch near me or closing my branch. So we have to change the complete mindset from both the culture perspective and the application of data to say, how do we certainly bring an experience that's more similar to what I'm getting from other high-tech companies? Because again, the winners are going to be those who will provide that experience, as opposed to simply those that provide the products without error, which is really what's expected as a bare bones minimum. And I think we're really going to be moving from banks no longer being important, but banking being important. And the key differentiator there is that it's not going to matter as much. Do I want to make sure I can access my financial institution? Yes. But I've kept my relationship now with Wells Fargo 8 years after I moved from California. Why? Number one, it's hard to switch, even though they've messed up a lot of times. Number two, as bad as they don't know me, they probably know me better than some of my other banks. However, I'm still writing checks on a twice-a-month basis from my PNC account, taking a picture, and depositing them in my Wells Fargo account because the process of transferring money between the two institutions is so broken. What would I like? I like an organization that understands that problem and says, you know what, we got to fix that. Or let's say my business bank, which is PNC in Cleveland, being able to say, you know what, you're trying to make a lot of transfers. You're accepting a lot of checks, but you have to come in to deposit. Why? Because you've made my limit on what I can deposit electronically or through a click and deposit so low that I'm forced to go in the branch. So let's be careful about these branch numbers. How many times do I want to go in the branch versus how many times do I have to go in the branch?
Yeah, that's such an interesting concept there, this notion of the bank not understanding you, and let me say it really investing in the relationship, because I think there's huge potential for institutions to actually act like a financial ally to their customers and taking a very proactive role in the financial lives of their members and investing in that relationship. And it's just so surprising to me the number of institutions that don't put the customer at the center and take time to really understand some of these little nuances. But I think there's just an incredible opportunity for banks to be more proactive and again, really be a financial ally to their customers.
I think it's interesting because when you look at it, you realize that everything having to do with digital banking up till now has had to do with reducing costs for the financial institution. I mean, it's not because they said, oh, by the way, the consumer wants mobile banking. No, they saw the advantage of mobile banking being, I can take branch transactions out of the branch and put them on a mobile phone. Direct automatic, direct deposit, visual deposit. You look and you say, what was the business case? Business case, I go from $9 to 9 cents. Well, that's great, but you haven't cut the number of employees in the branch. So the reality is you now have additional costs. But if you look at the whole foundation upon which digital banking has been built, it's been built to say, how can I reduce costs? That's not a customer experience centered thing. As much as we talk a good game, what we find is that overall the customer experience has suffered because we haven't looked at it from the customer's perspective. And the reality today is customers are making decisions as to who they want to bank with based on how good the mobile apps are. This is coming out more and more. J.D. Power found a year and a half ago that the highest ranking banks are now the largest. It wasn't that they were providing better service. It wasn't that they were not having as big of fees. It wasn't that they were the most neighborly. The reality is they got high ratings because of their digital capabilities and their ability to deliver a really good mobile and digital experience. So what happens is we've had conversations recently where young people are starting their banking relationships. And they have a choice. And these young people are people that want to buy local. They want to support the local community. They want to support local businesses. But where do they choose to do banking? Chase, Wells, Bank of America, Citibank. Why? Because they say, as much as I want to work locally, I like the digital components that these other banks provide. So while we may not be losing customers yet from the banking community, new decision makers who are making their first time decisions are making decisions based on that digital engagement. And I'm not going to say that those 4 major banks or 5 or 6 other ones after that are providing great services, but they're getting it better. And I think when we look at things like Capital One providing the ability to do the beginning of voice banking, those banks are getting the ear of the newest consumers that want to have a better experience.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the institutions we work with, they're a publicly traded bank. And for them, it was about how can I demonstrate that I can still bring to market best in class technology, the same type of stuff that, you're seeing, Erica with Bank of America and
Right.
bot. This technology can be made available to some of the smaller institutions who want to use it as a customer acquisition and showing like, look, we can compete with technology. And by the way, I'm not going to open fake accounts for you. And if you want a branch, we're here, and just like be more of a participatory role in their financial lives, I think is, just one way you can really stand out.
But we got to start somewhere. We just finished a report this month on digital account opening and onboarding. And we find that right now, it's a broken process. Your online account opening can be done by about 47% of the financial institutions. But in more than half of those, you got to come in the branch to finish it. You got to come in the branch to either provide know your customer proof or to deposit funds. That doesn't have to be done that way. It's all on the mobile side. It's even worse. We have under 20% of the organizations can provide a mobile opening process on a mobile device, and of those, again, less than 50% allow you to do it from front to back, end to end, on a mobile device. I'm sorry. The consumer is shopping for their product online, on their mobile device or on their computer. You do all your shopping. You figure out who you want to go to. You go to the site. They say you can open it. You get 3/4 way through the process. They say, thank you very much, but you can't do it here. Or on a mobile device, you've gotten to the 10th minute typing in individual items when you're going, why don't you just pick it up off my address book on my phone? There's easier ways to do this. And there's a lot of providers that can do that. So we're breaking the promise that we set the customer up for. And what's even worse is if either one of these transactions move to the branch employee at 90% of organizations is given an incentive to restart the process so that they get the credit as opposed to the mobile or the digital bank or the online bank. So the reality is you come into the branch and I'm going to say, hey, you know what I want to do for you? I understand you started, but I want to make sure it's all right. Let's start from the start, but I promise you I'll do it fast and we're going to do this. What they're really doing is saying, I'm going to make you feel good about the fact that I'm going to unwind the situation. And at most institutions, since the measurement is so badly done, the organization believes that the entire transaction took place in the branch. They don't do the tracking to find out. They look at last touch attribution as opposed to attribution along the customer journey. Therefore, when banks say customers don't want mobile and online opening, well, that may not be the case. You just did not know that they all wanted it. We have a research report that I think was just done by Navantis, and I think Javelin's done similar studies that show that almost 50% of consumers want to open an account digitally because they started there. They're not walking branch to branch anymore to find out which is the best, what best brochure can I look at, what's going to give me the best. They're all the same. So again, we're breaking the personalization and the digital promise for the consumer, making them think we're going to be digital and then not doing it.
Jim, thank you so much for the conversation.
Not a real uplifting conversation, maybe, but I'm trying.
Well, this was super valuable for me, hopefully for our listeners out there as well. I'm fully confident that it was. So I just want to thank you for your time and participating in the first virtual AI and banking summit. We know you're a busy man, so thanks for joining. For those listeners out there who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? You're pretty active on Twitter, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
How do we get in touch with you?
One way is on Twitter, at Jim Marous, M-A-R-O-U-S. Easy way you can DM me. In addition, you can also email me. It's jmarous@thefinancialbrand.com. I respond to all the emails I get. I really want to help as much as possible. I can possibly point people in the right direction. And I think the key is to get off stuck. We continue to see in all of our surveys, people say, I'm not doing that, but I will do it in the next 1 to 3 years. And those numbers stay the same year after year after year, while the numbers that are doing it aren't moving very much. It's easy to put off these major initiatives. You got to start somewhere.
Yep, absolutely. Well, again, Jim, thanks for your time and participating in this event, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate it. Good to see you. Bye-bye.